This is Professor Teresa Pelkie. This is Session 14, Part 2, Using DDL to Define and Modify Tables. In this session, we will look at techniques you can use to create and modify table definitions. For most of this course, we've been working with statements that work with data that is in a table. We'll now look at how you can create a new table. One of the quickest ways to create a new table is to use a tool like MySQL Workbench. All of the widely used database management systems either include a tool like Workbench, or you can find one that has been developed for the database. Most of these tools are freely available. To create a new table in a MySQL schema, go to the schema in the Workbench and right-click the table's item. On the pop-up menu, click the Create Table item as shown on the left side of this slide. That opens the New Table panel, shown on the right side of this slide. You start by entering the table name at the top of the panel. You can enter comments that describe the table. You then click in the column entry area and enter definitions for the columns that will be in the table. At minimum, you need to enter a column name and specify a data type for each column. You can use the checkboxes that are in the column entry area or use the checkboxes that are in the lower right corner of the panel to set options for the column. When you are done entering the column definitions, click the Apply button. When you click the Apply button, the Apply SQL Script to Database panel shown on this slide is displayed. This panel shows the generated script that will be used to create the table based on what you entered in the New Table panel. In this example, the generated script is a Create Table script. Create Table is an example of an SQL Data Definition Language, or DDL statement. You've already seen some other DDL statements: Create View and Create Procedure. The Create statements are used to create objects that will be in a schema. There is also a Create Schema statement used to create a new schema. Now let's look at another way to create a table. In this example, we're not really going to create the table. Instead, we will look at the actual Create Table statement that was used to create one of the existing tables. Go back to the Workbench. Before doing the next steps, use the File, New Query tab menu item to open a new blank query tab. In the Navigator section of the Workbench, locate the Advisors table in the college schema. Right-click the Advisors table. On the pop-up menu, click the Send to SQL Editor item. That displays another menu. Click the Create Statement item on that menu. The Create Table statement is written to the blank Query tab. As you can see, the Create Table statement is used to specify the name of the table and a list of columns in the table. Each column has a name and then its data type. Any attributes for the column are generated. Attributes of the table, such as primary key, are also generated. Following the closing parenthesis character, there are two additional table attributes that are specific to MySQL. This is an executable statement. If you click the lightning bolt icon, the Create Table statement will run. In this case, you will get an error since there is already a table named Advisors in the schema. But if you want to create a quick copy of the table, you can simply change the table name and run the Create statement. You can also remove, change, or add column definitions in this statement. This Create Table statement is for MySQL. Although other database management systems will also have a statement that starts with Create Table, the contents of the statement is not standardized. What that means is that if you were to take a copy of this Create Table statement into another database management system, such as SQL Server, the statement would probably fail. It will be close to what you need, and you can probably make quick adjustments to the Create Table statement to get it to work with the other database. Now, if you need to create a new table, here's what you need to think about. Would it be quicker and less error-prone for you to use the panel where you enter the table and column names and check the column attributes? Or would it be better to type in a new create table statement, or start with the generated create table statement like this and modify it? Many database administrators prefer to work with the statements, and in fact will use command line tools rather than tools like Workbench. But if you are not a DBA, or if you are unsure of the exact syntax to be used, you will probably find that it is easier to use Workbench. In the end, Workbench will generate and run a correct create table statement for you based on your specifications and selections. Here's something you might want to do once you have a schema and its objects defined. Go through the schema and for each object, right-click it and run its generate option. The idea is to generate the create statement like the create table statement shown here. Once you have the create statement in a query panel, use the File, Save Script As menu option and save the script to a file in your file system. That way you have a backup of the statements that you'll need if you need to recreate your database. This is not the same as a database backup since you're not saving the data, but saving the definitions of all of the objects in the database. It is easy to do and may be very useful someday. Once you have a database in production, it is fairly unusual to have to change the definition of a table. Most changes usually occur early in the lifetime of the database when it is being developed and during initial usage. If you do need to make a change to an existing table, you can use the Alter Table DDL statement. Using Workbench, this is easy. Locate the table in the navigator and right-click on it. Select the Alter Table item in the pop-up menu as shown on the left of this slide. When you click Alter Table, the table definition panel is displayed. That panel is not shown on this slide, but you saw it earlier in this video. It is the panel where you specify the column names, data types, and attributes. After you make the required changes, you will click the Apply button on the definition panel. The Apply SQL Script to Database panel, shown on the right side of this slide, is displayed. The script that is generated includes an Alter Table DDL statement. The Alter Table statement specifies the table name and change column statements for any changes made to the columns. If you added any columns to the table, you will see an Add Column statement. If you remove a column from the table, you will see a Drop Column statement. Now, just because you make changes on the definition panel and generate an Alter Table does not mean that the Alter Table will run successfully. If the only change you are making to a table is to add one or more columns, then the Alter Table will probably run with no problems. If you drop a column, there may be issues if the column is a key column and is referenced by other database objects. Changing the data type is questionable. You can probably change a date time or numeric data type to a character or varchar data type if you make sure that the length of the new definition is sufficient. Trying to change from a character or varchar data type to a date, time, or numeric data type is very prone to failure if you already have data in the table. If the character or varchar data type cannot be successfully converted to the new data type, the Alter Table will fail. Before you perform an Alter Table on a table that is used in production, it might be a good idea to make a copy of the table, including its data, and try running the Alter Table on the copy. That way you can find out if there are any problems before you run the Alter Table. If you make changes to existing columns, especially data type or null, not null changes, you may run into problems even if the Alter Table is successful. If the column is referred to by other objects, or if the column is referenced in select, insert, update, or delete statements, especially in join, where, having, and order by clauses, you may have made a change that will result in a breaking change. As an alternative to changing a column definition in a production table, it may be safer to just add a new column that has the required data type and attributes. Having to make changes to existing tables is a fact of life, but just because a tool like MySQL Workbench makes it easy to make the change does not mean that there will be no additional problems. In the next video, we'll look at how keys and indexes are defined and used.